Purrely is finally starting to get a little bit of recognition out here. Alright, 34% of you guys, make sure you smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more content. Alright, so we have the breakdown for the next play tournament for this week. And, where's the tier elements at? Tier was just dominating the OCG, and then you turn the dial this week, and it was represented in the tournament. Trust me on this. I was looking at the participation chart. It was the biggest slice of the pie chart. But when you get down to top 8 here, it's gone. Nowhere to be seen. The biggest thing here that catches my attention is Purrely made top cut. Now, Purrely has been actually kind of starting to make waves in the OCG here now that they've got the release of the new support card. And I'll talk more about the list here in a couple minutes because it did actually do relatively well out of this tournament. So that's going to be something you can look forward to. But we had a Flaunderies player step on up here and do good. That's without the barrier statue, by the way. We had Runic. Runic good stuff still continues to be a little bit of a pain in the butt for their format. They tend to still continue to have issues with that. I'm not really surprised. Now, we also have Candy Treats here as well. Madolche actually performing up to a standard here and actually shaking things up. That's amazing. We also have the remnants of Kashtira. Now, Kashtira has turned into Ogre control at this point. Effectively, they're going to use Kashtira Ogre to kind of do a lot of their key plays because of the latest limitations that they have. Doesn't exactly put them in a good place. We also have Zephyra. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the list for Zephyra here, so very sorry about that. We also have Labyrinth here, which Labyrinth's been doing some things. If you've been paying attention to some of the deck lists and stuff that we've been uploading, you've definitely seen that. And then we also have Vernal Sif good stuff. I really do like the fact that we've seen Vernal Sif like Naturia actually kind of shaking things up and doing well, so that's absolutely amazing for diversity. Let's pass on over for some of these top deck lists. Winning the event here was none other than Runic, and I know half the comments are going to go, boo. Well, this is actually kind of interesting. I've been kind of keeping up with the evolution of Runic in the OCG, but this deck has to go through so many hoops in order to kind of evolve. Now remember, we're still playing a mono Awato. Most of the time with these builds, I'm used to seeing the sphere mode in the main deck, which this build doesn't actually main deck them, which is actually good. Now the most interesting thing on this list is actually down here in the trap section, that little green looking trap card called Synchro Zone. Neither player can declare an attack with non-synchro monsters, and you can only use each of the following effects of Synchro Zone once per turn. If a non-tuner synchro monster is sent to the graveyard, except during damage step, and target one of them, special summon it, and if you do, it's treated as a tuner. And then during your opponent's main phase, you can send this face of card and spell and trap cards on the graveyard immediately after effect resolves. You can synchro summon one synchro monster using monsters you control as material. They're using this as a mini Mystic Mine, actually, to force the opponent not to be able to declare attacks with anything that's not a synchro monster. How hilarious is that? If your deck has no access to any synchro monsters, and they flip this card up against you, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, absolutely nothing. All right? Like, that's the gimmick. That's it. You just flip this up and you're good to go. Is this a crazy cool new innovation? Yes, I do think so. I think seeing Synchro Zone seeing play as a defensive option card for a deck like Runic really sets the stage here for kind of what's to come. And I think that that's going to be a very important thing here, kind of as more of the metagame starts to get figured out here, and more that they have to kind of test the waters in order to kind of keep these decks actually in the metagame. Because, you know, with the massive like turnover and things that they're kind of going through here, it's very interesting to see like the forced changes that they have to go through. So yeah, first place. Next up here is our Flaunderies list. Now, for those of you that have been paying attention to Flaunderies, you've definitely noticed that Barrier Statue of Stormwinds is cratered off the face of the planet. They don't have access to it. It's a real sad day for Flaunder players. But this build is this is Turbo Flaunderies. They're playing triple chicken game, triple copies of Upstar Goblin. But I noticed something else down here that's kind of interesting. They're playing the Morganite spell card, which gives you the ability to get 2 draws during your normal draw phase, gives you the ability to get 2 additional normal summons per turn. Now, in a deck like Flunder, that actually can generate, the actual advantage of this, that is very, very interesting. So, keep in mind that, once again, like this deck it's got its field spell reduced to 1 at this point, and it's kind of limping in order to kind of get off the ground. But the use of Morganite in this deck is very, very interesting. I know a lot of people have discounted that card and have tossed it aside, and they're like, no, it's not good. But when you can see something like this, that's turbo draw power, wants to see that card in order to go through its lines of play, I think that's actually kind of worth looking at here. Now, your extra deck is pretty standard. I mean, like, you're going to play all of your resources. You don't really care. I'm also surprised that this build's not, like, trying to play Pot of Prosperity or maybe anything else. I guess the turbo draw power supplement's enough. And then, of course, we're main decking 1 max team. No crossout designator. I believe it's just in case they see it, and then they're citing the other 2. And then we also have the Dark Simorgh down here in the extra deck. Literally the classic. And then, of course, we have the 3rd Dimensional Fissure, 2 Harpy's Featherstorms. All of the other basic utility cards that you kind of see here. So overall, not too bad of a list. Definitely different. Now we have a Purrely list. Now, the first thing that catches me off guard here is we're only playing one from Amazing Defenders. We opted just to play 5 Purrelys in name. I mean, to be fair, the new one here actually ends up being the best one. Yeah, the one from Cyberstorm Axis just makes this archetype so much better. Like, the biggest thing that they needed to have with the secondary name was the ability to be able to capitalize on using that extra name. Being able to put 2 of the little evolutions on the field was really, really critical. And they did a very good job at actually giving you access to that. Now, the other interesting thing I see down here is we actually are playing some rank 1s in this deck. I haven't really seen a lot of people consider that option, actually. So I see they're playing the Assembled Nightingale down here just so you can downward Zeus on up the extra materials. I think that's actually kind of interesting. Your use of hand traps in this deck, actually is kind of interesting. I like that. I see we're also only playing 2 of the trap card, which is fine. We're also playing for the Exceeds only 2 of the big black one and then 1 of the big white one. I mean, typically, to be fair, the one that is unaffected by the activated effects of the opponent, while has, 2 or more materials, 5 more materials? One of the 2 is an absolute monster. A lot of people are going to have a lot of issues climbing over that. Down here in the extra deck, I mean, you're playing a lot of utility cards. Like, you have the Droll and Lockbirds, you have the Evenlies to kind of make sure that you can equalize the game flow a little bit. What else is a little bit interesting here? I guess the addition of only 1 talents in the main deck is also pretty good. Looking at your purely spell ratios, though, everything looks pretty alright, honestly. Like I said, you've kind of got to get your ratios nailed down to make this deck function. And we're kind of getting our foot in the door here to actually see some ideas flow for this. So good stuff. And the last here is we have Kashtira. Now this is what I mean when I say that this deck has become ogre control. Because Fenrir and Unicorn are restricted to 1. So what do you have to do? Well, you're going to have to go to your next named monster, which is going to be Ogre. And then Ogre is going to give you filtering options through the opponent's deck. It's all pretty straightforward for what you want to do. But this deck is so much weaker than it previously was. Now, do keep in mind, I mean, you're only playing 1 Unicorn, 1 Fenrir, 1 Tier Elements, Kashtira, and then 1 of the big Scareclaw Kashtira as well because of your limitations. And, of course, I have noticed that these decks have gone towards Planet Pathfinder at the moment. It does give you access to get to your field spell. Obviously, once you're done with your field spell, you can go ahead and rotate Necro Valley on up and then play the slow grind game against your opponent. If you can typically establish walking, talking Macrocosmo, you should be in a decent position against your opponent. I think that's the big thing I like about this deck is in its dialed back state, it's a completely different deck than like the crazy, nest that we really had beforehand. So it definitely sets the stage for something very interesting. So overall, am I surprised by this week's results? Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most diverse tournaments that I have had the chance to actually see as of late. And when you can see a nice little bit of diversity kind of shine through here, it puts a smile on your face, all right? It means that good things are happening, and that means that, our crapshoot of a format will actually get fixed at some point. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, alright? Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.